care of a little business. All right, welcome to the February 15th, 2024 regular meeting of the Skokie 68 School Board. Can I have a roll call, please?
Joseph?
Here.
Gallagher?
Here.
Ruffner?
Here.
Sturmans?
Here.
Sullivan?
Here.
Warshaw?
Here.
Thank you.
Katrina's let us know she will be attending, but will be a late school function. We will now open our meeting for public comment. Do we have any registered?
No.
None online? Right, and moving on, we will go right to our superintendent's reports. Thank you.
Our first presentation tonight is from Highland. I'd like to introduce Dr. Bradley so she can introduce her team.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. All right, so tonight, in thinking about what we wanted to share with you this evening, we thought we would give you a glimpse into the new science programming that's happening at all of the elementary schools. As you know, this is our first year in which elementary students receive science instruction from a dedicated science teacher in a classroom dedicated to science instruction. And I have to tell you personally, when we started this position last year, I thought I wanted to apply for it because I started my career as a science teacher, but at high school, and teaching elementary science would be, I think, one of the best jobs. So each class in grades 1 through 5 goes to the science room twice a week for 45 minutes, with kindergarten going twice a week for 30 minutes. So tonight we're going to show you students across K-5 engaging in science learning through their investigations. You'll hear them express their feelings about science, and you'll also hear our Highland science teacher, Megan Looney, sharing her thoughts on how it's all going, and we'll have some thoughts from our general education teachers as well. So I want to thank the Highland leadership team for putting together this presentation, and here tonight to share with you are Nicole Cooney, one of our 4th grade teachers, Molly Olson, one of our 2nd grade teachers, Patty Perrin, our math specialist, Cindy Stevens, one of our 3rd grade teachers, intended to be here, but she got sick at the middle of the day today. But also contributing, but not here, were Bradley Allen, Asia Hussein, and Jordan Katz. So we're going to start by just showing you the curriculum. The print's small, but you can see that from kindergarten through 5th grade, each grade level engages in 3 different aspects of science: life science, physical science, and earth science, for about a trimester. And then students document their work on a daily basis in their science notebooks, and they make predictions, note observations, organize their data, and draw conclusions. And we brought some samples for you to take a look at the science notebooks. It's really great to see them so organized, and across the grade levels they'll start using them in kindergarten and be using them all the way up to the 5th grade, so they'll really have a sense of continuity. Apparently science is funny.
It's joy.
It is joy. It's really, really inspiring to go in there and see their curiosity and see them really enjoying the science.
Okay, so we have next some photographs of students hard at work. So we'll start with kindergarten. This is one of our kinders she just created a toy, her own version of a plastic toy, as she explores pushes and pulls during their forces and motions unit. On the left of your screen, we've got 1st graders experimenting with rubber bands to learn how vibrating materials can make sound. And on the other side, we have Adam, who's that little guy in the hoodie, and his friends in 3rd grade learning about inertia and friction through their use of beam balances. We have Janelle up in the left corner and her buddies using building blocks to build their understanding of particles. And Seffel is in the middle, and others braving the creepy crawlies as they check in on their 3 Madagascar hissing cockroaches, affectionately named SpongeBob, Blaze, and Kit Kat.
I think Blaze passed away.
Oh, no.
Yeah, sorry to hear for your loss. So we are fostering 3 Madagascar hissing cockroaches since September at Highland, and the kids have really, they're all, as you can see in these pictures, they're touching them, they're holding them, they're very, very bonded with the Madagascar fishing cockroaches. The teachers less so.
Yeah. And then we have our fifth graders, Hania and Anna here, working with handmade balance scales as they learned about volume and mass of different types of gases. And then last, we have Kaylee. She's building a model of a seed dispersing mechanism. This was a series of really fun lessons developed in partnership between our district science teachers and the Chicago Botanic Gardens.
So we gathered some thoughts from our science teachers across the district, all three of them. So this slide shares some thoughts from them who note excited students engaging in critical thinking, trying something new, sharing their interest in science, engaging in hands-on cooperative learning, which is exactly what we want to see in our students, curiosity and discovering and applying their knowledge about the world. So I'll just give you a second to read that, I won't read aloud to you.
At Highland, the leadership team has had the opportunity to sit down with Megan Looney, our own Highland science teacher, and ask her some more specific questions about the program. And the first one was, what were the most impactful things she's noticed about the program model in science instruction?
I think for me, it really stems that this program that we adopted is designed with the three standards in mind when it comes to science. So there's science and engineering practices, there's cross-cutting concepts, and then the disciplinary core idea, which is essentially to say all of those are involved in our daily instruction. And so I think from the student side of things, they're most excited because I connect things daily to the real world. When it comes to the teacher side of things, that would be called a phenomena. So for example, with first grade lately, I showed them a visual decibel meter because we've been learning about sound and they were really excited about that. With third grade, we looked at weather and climate, and Mr. Verdugo, the custodian, and I helped to design a weather station outside the front of the school and then connected that to how news centers also have those. I think their favorite part is what they ask for each day. They say, can we do an investigation today? Which when I was a child, that's what we called an experiment. These opportunities lead to hands-on inquiry to answer bigger questions in the unit. They're excited to share their answers with others, and that's really why I think it's been successful, because it connects to the real world and at the same time gives them hands-on practical experience.
Another question that we asked, we were curious to find out if there were any surprises that had been shared from students or any surprises that she's noticed since switching to the new program model.
I think a lot of it comes from that they actually know a lot already. They have a lot of prior knowledge that they can lean on. For example, yesterday in fifth grade, we were doing a lab or an investigation that connected to air and air having mass and volume. And students were clarifying, is this volume about sound and how things are loud and soft, or is this volume about how things take up space? And I could ask them, what do you think? And they know, oh, it's about how much space that takes up, how much mass something has. And so I think that's another surprise, is that they actually know a lot and are learning to trust their guts more. I think a lot of it comes from that they actually know a lot already. They have a lot of prior knowledge that they can lean on. For example, yesterday in fifth grade, we were doing a lab or an investigation that connected to air and air having mass and volume. And students were clear.
Sorry about that.
That's all right.
So on the last slide from Megan, we asked her to share some positive experiences that she's had. That's the first video that we'll watch. And then the second video is basically the evidence for your great decision that you made.
I think it's been really powerful this year to learn the scope and sequence that goes into a science program. Just as we have a math specialist and literacy specialist at each school, I'm really able to see how the science standards grow and build on each other in a way. As a classroom teacher, you know that particular grade level. I'm able to see like currently how 2nd grade and 5th grade are both learning about the states and properties of matter and structures and how those build on one another and be able to see, so now they know this and here's where we can go with that and being able to build on it in ways that I think when you're focused at one, when you have to spread yourself across many disciplines, you don't have the ability to do. Another reason why I think we should continue the program is having a dedicated space allows students to come in and feel free to ask questions about what they see and what they notice. They're curious naturally, and so wondering about the plants, who's growing those? Or there are balloons in the room, are we gonna use those today? So it just provides an opportunity, and with those notice and wonders, to build some both social language as well as academic language for all students. I think it's been really powerful. Another reason why I think we should learn the Skokie come in and feel free to ask questions about what they see and what they notice. They're curious.
So how do I get to the next slide?
Just click, click, click.
Oh, there we go. Yeah.
Okay, so next we'll hear straight from the students. We've got 4 student videos to show you, and the themes I'm sure you'll take note of as you listen are around excitement, love of the hands-on aspect, the experimental aspect, and an enjoyment of the frequent opportunities for cooperative learning.
One thing that I love about science is that Miss Looney makes it fun. One way she makes it fun is putting us into different groups and switching up the groups so that we can work with other people. In science, the best part is in science is that you can do fun activities and you can do fun experiments. My favorite experience is when we do the challenges, who can do the tallest snowman or who can do the tallest tower. And why I like it is because it's a real challenge to see who can have the longest one. And now since I go all the way up and the challenges are getting more harder, I feel like more going to science. I'm more happy going to science. Miss Mooney gave us 2 cups, 1 long string, and we were trying to figure out if these items, which we put together to make a cup phone, if they actually work to make a phone, just like a real phone on a string. But instead, he told us to hold it tight and then try to do it low. And then when we did low, it was tighter. It was really hard to hear it. But then when we held it tight, it was really loud. But then I realized that when you put a car down a giant track, it doesn't come up. But if you launch it through a straight track, it'll go to the other side. So I was thinking, if it didn't, you can't hear it when it goes low, you can hear it when it goes straight. That means our voices are kind of jumping on the string to the other side, and then that's how I figured it out. And it was really funny because it's like a phone, but instead it's just 2 cups and 1 long string.
Sorry.
Miss Mooney gave us
I knew this was gonna be the hardest part.
I heard all about that experiment.
And this is one of our newcomer students.
I like science. Science is so good. And Miss Rooney is the good teacher because now I read like 2 million times. She's so good. She's so calm. And she told me that I am a good thing. And she told like everybody like the same thing. And she told me that clothes, the bush. She told me a good things. And science is my favorite part in the school.
So there were some students who really wanted to share but preferred not to be recorded on video. So in fourth grade, Hanan highlighted that he's having a lot of fun and he really appreciates the collaborative space that he can that he has with his peers. In first grade, again, loves the new room and all the materials. And then especially the cockroaches, did we say that already, the cockroaches? And then in fifth grade, Layla, Sophia, and Rashard love the experiments, and of course, they love the social aspect of learning in science.
Our classroom teachers also shared some feedback that they're very excited about science being taught by someone who's dedicated to just teaching science. So they know their science teacher colleagues have knowledge and expertise and are able to really dive in and focus on that one curricular topic, making science instruction more meaningful and robust for students, because the science teacher is just dedicated to teaching science. So there's a lot of text for you to digest there. And that's the end of our presentation, but we would also like to invite you to come out anytime if you'd like to see science instruction or any instruction in action in our science classroom at Highland.
Do we have to pet
Oh,
the
and sorry,
cockroaches?
any questions?
Do we have to pet the
You do
cockroaches?
not. You do not have to. If you did, the children would probably be surprised by that, because all of the adults are horrified. Except for Miss Looney. Any questions?
Not a question, but this is awesome. This notebook is the best thing I've read. And I think because of where it is in the notebook, this probably was done early in the school year, but this student, for their science project, measured the temperature in the teacher fridge.
Oh.
It was 64 degrees.
Oh,
According to her scientific study. So I just wanted to mention that for the health and well-being of the staff.
That explains the staff attendance issues.
Yeah. It's marvelous, the whole thing. Thank you.
Thank you so much for such a wonderful presentation. I remember when we were embarking on this last spring, there was at least a couple community members that were concerned that science would be diminished in some way. And we knew otherwise, and just after seeing what you guys have shared
It's absolutely
tonight,
been elevated.
Absolutely.
Absolutely been elevated.
Thank you. That was the goal and intent, and you've done a wonderful job.
thank you very much.
None of our presentations are even close to that.
I know, sorry that you gotta follow that, but it's something exciting, it's our annual audit. And no one's gonna take it personally if you may excuse yourself at this point.
So, switching to math. Yes. Sharon Jurgensen is here from Eder Casella. She's our main auditor and is here to report on the audit from last school year, 2022-2023.
Well, good evening. Again, my name is Sheridan Jurgensen. I'm one of the partners at, it actually was Eder Casella. It's now Extasian.
Sorry.
That's not an issue. Nothing changed, just the name. But just here to give you a quick overview of the audit, and then is there any questions you might have over what the document shows. Overall, the audit went really well. You'll see in the audit report, the first thing is our opinion. It's an unmodified opinion, and according to accounting standards, that's the best opinion you can have. And so it's several pages long, but basically it's saying that all the testing we did, all the accounts we looked at, everything we did, that we were able to determine that we felt that the financial statements were free from material misstatement. It also talks in there about internal controls. And while we don't give an opinion on internal controls, we do spend a lot of time looking at them. And so not only are we looking at your written policies and procedures, which are important, but more importantly, we're sitting down with the people that are processing those transactions to make sure those are being followed, as well as to make sure that no one has too much control, so that there's proper approval, there's a second person looking over everything. And so there was no issues with any of that. If anything were ever to come of that, and there's any deficiencies, you would see that in a separate letter, a management letter, but we have not had any deficiencies in internal controls or otherwise, so that's great news. In the audit report, I would recommend, it is a lengthy document, but if you read nothing else, starting on page 6 is a management discussion and analysis section. It's about 6 or 7 pages and just gives you a quick overview of what happened during the year, some variances and some changes and explanations as to why. So just kind of a quick overview of what the rest of the audit report says. There's 2 sets of financial statements. There's the government-wide, which is a more long-term outlook statement. And then you have the fund financial statements on page 17 and 18. You'll see the results of the revenues and expenses and the resulting change in fund balance for each of the funds. Overall, you'll see there was a $6.6 million increase for the year. That's mainly related to the issuance of the $10 million in bonds last year. But you can kind of see based on the funds where that money was spent, mainly it being in the capital projects, money being transferred over. The rest of the report is footnotes that just give you a lot more details into the numbers in the financial statements. There was a new standard that we had to implement regarding subscription-based IT agreements. It's something that we will be looking at every year going forward. There was nothing that rose to falling under the standard that we had to report something differently than we had in the past, but that is something we'll continue to look at and evaluate each year. And then the final part of the audit, in the back is your single audit, which is your testing of all your federal rewards. And so we tested for ESSER grants this year, and there was no issues with those. We did have to report an other matter, which is just related to some reporting to ISBE was a few days late for a couple of reporters. So no issue at all, it's just something that we're required to report. And then the last part that we submit as part of the audit is your AFR to ISBE. In there they calculate your financial profile, which is on a score of 0 to 4. And you were a 3.65 this year, which is the level that you were last year as well, which is considered the recognition category. So that's just a quick overview. I obviously can answer any questions though. Any others?
That's
Thank you.
straightforward. Yeah. No news is good news. Thank you. Thank you.
No problem. Thank you.
Applause like the kids.
Thank you.
Thank you, have a good
Have a
night.
good night.
Thank you. We move to our strategic plan goal update.
Dr. Samacek?
All right, so I will be sharing with you tonight progress that we have been making towards the teaching and learning portion of the strategic plan. Kind of following Ryan's lead from last month, I've identified this is the goal for teaching and learning, to support a learning culture that empowers teachers and students to reach their highest potential. And then the slides following identify the specific objective that's listed under the teaching and learning, and then the bullet points are all the pieces that have been in play. So the first objective is to address COVID-related learning loss in math and reading. We came back from COVID with a rebound mindset, thinking about how to accelerate learning versus how to remediate. So just a different shift in mindset about how we accelerate students' learning to catch them up. We use the priority standards as a focal point. The priority standards come from ISBE. In some cases, they list all of the standards as the priority standards. So that was fun. But we try to use those as identifiers for where to focus some of our content areas. We also added reading as a district and school improvement goal. Previously, we just had focused on math for our district improvement plan, and our buildings focused on math for their building improvement plans. We added reading as a goal. We also instituted what's called instructional planning days, where teacher teams get together for a couple of hours after the first administration and the second administration of the iReady diagnostic, and they partner with their ISTs and their principals to look at all of the academic data that they have available, what's happening in the classroom with classroom instruction and classroom data,
to determine what the students' needs are in terms of targeted instruction. And so grade levels make a goal and a plan around what they're going to target between that, we call them IPD, that IPD and the next IPD. So really just trying to use a lot of data analysis and data protocols to think about gaps that students have, and then also areas to celebrate success. Kid Days are another piece of that, where teams get together to talk about how students are progressing in Tier 2 instruction, and what needs are needing to be met through intervention supports within the classroom, and then beyond that, intervention with our interventionists. We also instituted WIN, which is what I need for kindergarten through 5th grade. And it's a dedicated block of time, 40 minutes each day of the week except for Monday because of early release, where teachers provide targeted instruction in literacy and math primarily to, again, target what students are needing. As you know, we adopted iReady as our new diagnostic and personalized instruction tool, and that is going very well. And then we also added a reading and a math specialist position at Old Orchard through the use of existing staff, so they weren't actually new hires. The second objective is all about implementing evidence-based and high-quality instruction that meets all of our students' needs. So to address that, we created the instructional support teams at each school. An ESL specialist position was created to help support our newcomer students. We created our dedicated science teachers. We also use the reading and writing workshop model in kindergarten through 8th grade. Old Orchard Math Department has been focusing on visible thinking in math and really getting kids to be able to share their thinking about math and use that those conversation points with one another to learn from each other. We've continued to use teacher clarity as a focus and a main part of our school improvement strategy. We've been using teacher clarity for about 4 years. We had just had some final training with it the day before we shut down for COVID. So it's continuing to be a main emphasis in team meetings and PLC meetings. Our teachers are identifying the learning intentions for the lessons and then the success criteria. And they communicate those to students so students know this is what I'm learning and this is how I know I'll be successful if I'm able to do X, Y, and Z. We also created this year K-5 curriculum cohorts. They meet on 6 of our Mondays after school in different cohorts depending on areas of interest in literacy, math, and oracy. And the purpose for those groups is to enhance curriculum and do a little bit of curriculum writing, think about common assessments, whatever it is needed that the group determines that they kind of take the point on for their colleagues and create items resources that their colleagues can use across the district in that particular area. This objective is related to comprehensive professional learning. As I've said before, our professional learning in District 68 is very robust. We've moved more to the model of job-embedded professional development for literacy, math, and science than pull out. And again, that's kind of a result of COVID and sub-coverage, and we really don't want to pull teachers out for PD and have them missing classroom instruction. So the job-embedded professional development has really been very beneficial. Teachers have appreciated it. The consultants are working with teachers and working with IST members in the classrooms, doing modeling of lessons, co-teaching, planning. So they're actually helping with the instruction that's taking place in that moment versus having them sit in this room and talk about instruction that might or might not happen. Those partnerships are through UIC, Loyola, and several other content experts. And then our instructional support team also provides in-house professional development sessions during PLCs, on our early release Mondays, on our institutes. So we really try to capitalize on as much time as we can to help teachers enhance their practice. Student engagement is another objective. We use the 5 essentials data to determine how kids are feeling about their experience in school as it relates to student engagement. And buildings create action plans based on the data that is represented from their schools' surveys. Our teachers work really hard to build in collaborative structures, like you heard evidenced in the science presentation just a moment ago, in their everyday lessons. We implemented Avid elective at Old Orchard this year with 6th grade. We have 1 Avid elective classroom, and that is all about building community and building engagement in your learning and helping kids understand how to use different executive functioning skills to be engaged in their learning and take ownership of their learning. We also revised our teacher evaluation framework and the subsequent administrator and teacher interactions around that framework really produce and promote high levels of cognitive student engagement. The evaluation rubric that we are using now really ties in best practices around how to plan for instruction, best practices around delivering instruction, best practices around how to create an engaging learning environment. It puts them all together into 6 clusters, and the conversations around clusters has really enhanced teachers' understanding of how all those things fit together rather than separately as they thought about before. We also have one of our new teacher PLC sessions. We offer several throughout the year for our new teachers. And one of those sessions is dedicated specifically to student engagement strategies. So really kind of helping them understand there are a myriad of ways that they can engage their students in fun, creative ways. We like to steal from Zaretta Hammond's work. She is someone who is very much about equity and brain-based learning, and she talks about hiding the vegetables. So hiding the work, kids don't know they're actually, critically thinking because you develop activities that are engaging and they think they're just having fun, but they're really learning. So we talk about that with our new teachers and help them see how they can hide the vegetables. Another objective is utilizing data to inform instructional decisions. So I already talked a little bit about some of the data review, our iReady diagnostic, the growth assessment. We look at data around the personalized learning progress that students are making. Another assessment that we administer is the EasyCBM. We look at our IEPs and progress monitoring within those, and then common assessments within each of the grade levels. We also have implemented some new MTSS structures, which I spoke about already. And then all of that really is kind of part of the bigger picture of our school improvement process, where SMART goals are established, they're monitored, they're adjusted based on data as it continues to come in, and we look at literacy, math, and SEL. I have a lot of objectives.
You have a lot of
You'll get to see me next month and the following month as well. All right, so this piece is about MTSS, and I've kind of spoken about some of the pieces. We have worked as a district to develop a common MTSS approach. Robin and her team presented on that last month with her IST. Our district SEL committee is in year 2 of developing a common approach to SEL and behavior, so MTSS-B for behavior. We're looking at reinvigorating our ruler implementation. That is our SEL curriculum that was adopted, I believe the year before I came here, so about 7 years ago, 8 years ago. We're looking at selecting a new and better SEL universal screener. The one that we currently have really does not provide us what we want out of it, so we're looking at a replacement for that. And then a common approach for interventions for behavior and SEL supports. Our fabulous tech team is also working on developing an MTSS portal specifically for us. There are many out there. We've tried purchasing one and it did not work because it was not able to customize for us the way we needed it. So our tech team is like, we can build that for you. So they are working on that. It's well underway. And that will help our teachers and our IST teams with tracking and visualizing data so that we can see the movement of kids within MTSS. And then lastly, we also have worked to develop a common process for monitoring student attendance. Student attendance has taken a bit of a dip, not only here in the district, but really across the country since COVID. So we're working hard to try to get families to understand that kids need to be in school and help kids understand that they need to be in school. And we've developed some common process and language through the implementation of our new SIS system, Infinite Campus, to be a little bit more proactive in reaching out to families. Another objective is to optimize planning, prep, and professional learning time. So we added additional plan and prep time for our elementary teachers through the science instruction piece. We also really work hard to capitalize on our Monday early release time. So we provide building-based professional learning, collaboration. We have the 6 sessions I mentioned for our curriculum cohort meetings. Old Orchard offers PD cohorts. Their departments already meet as a department. So we did a little spin on the curriculum cohort, and they have PD cohorts that meet based on different PD topics. And then we, yeah, that's the last bullet. Got ahead of myself. All right, so coming soon, still to be developed, the last 2 objectives, which are to create a learner profile for content areas. That will happen through curriculum review. So when a learning team gets together to review another curriculum, we will develop a learner profile with that team for that content area. It kind of makes sense to do that when that happens naturally. And then the next one is to create an overall District 68 graduate profile. We got started with that in our strategic plan meetings. We just need to circle back to that and finalize it. Any questions?
Ooh. Don't hold your applause.
It's almost like teaching and learning is the business of the district, right?
I just think that's a lot of goals for a new superintendent's contract.
Well on their way to accomplishment.
Well on their way. My question was, you said you were in year 2 of the SEL. What's the timeline on the new approach?
We are probably going to get a lot accomplished this school year. I believe we will have an SEL screener tool, a new tool identified. We're going to try to pilot one later this year to see if it will give us what we want. We've divided into subcommittees, so we have one group looking at the screener, one group working on ruler, and then one group working on the MTSS structures. So we meet about once a month and we're making progress. Last year was really more of a learning year and kind of a thinking about, it just was a lot of conversation points. This year has been more, okay, let's get into the nitty gritty and the work. Will we be completely finished by the end of the year? Maybe, maybe not. It might be a continuing into year 3. But I feel like there will be some pieces that we will be ready to implement next school year. I'll know better in May.
Yeah, I have more than one
Yeah.
question, sorry.
That's okay.
The first one is just, can you tell me a little bit more about what Avid is, or like is this an elective people opt into, or is it one that is suggested for certain students? And I'm just wanting to get a better sense of what that's all about.
Yeah, so the big idea about Avid is it is college and career ready preparation. So it is targeted to students who are really considered to be average. So it's not a remediation, it's not an enrichment. It's for students who really are just kind of in the middle and might get lost or might not excel to the point that they could if they had the structures and the executive functioning skills, the study skills.
So this is like a replacement for the former was it called S3 or something like that? Didn't they have something else for BF functioning that was in the previous? Prior to this? Yeah, at Old Orchard, they had some sort of pullout that they, okay. I was just trying to figure out if this was like.
I think it was sort of a less formalized approach to
Yeah.
trying to accomplish something similar, but this is a nationally vetted program, curriculum at the junior high and high school level.
Yeah, their purpose is really to close the achievement gap for students of color, primarily, and students that, again, would not probably be college bound if they didn't have this system of support. So while there's an Avid elective class, those are students that are identified by our 5th grade teachers. They have an interview with administrators from Old Orchard, and their parents are pulled in, and then they're able to opt into the class. That's one small piece. The bigger piece is that Avid structures would be implemented across the school so that all students are benefiting from the structures that the curriculum offers, and not just that one group of students. That one group of students just gets a higher dose of the instruction, and that's just another layer of support for them.
Does anyone else have a question? Because I have 2 more, but they're small. Go ahead. Okay. The second one was regarding attendance. When you're talking to families about the importance of going to school, are there questions for the families about what barriers they may be facing?
Yeah, absolutely. That is one of the key functions of the conversation that principals have, and sometimes social workers have with families to determine what is the barrier, what is the cause, because sometimes there are pieces that we can help with that are pretty easy to put into place that mitigate whatever that issue is, and kids are able to start coming to school.
And then the last question was, when you're developing the graduate profile for District 68, is there going to be a conversation with District 219 about some of the profiles that they would hope, because they're dealing with so many different feeder districts that I suspect that they would also have some thoughts about what kind of graduate profile they would like to receive on their end. So I was just wondering if there's a collaboration going on with that at all.
Yeah, I don't know that we have a nailed down plan exactly yet, but I think that's a great idea, and it makes sense. We have a lot of collaboration meetings with them around content areas. So to just kind of expand that conversation and think about what are those characteristics that you're looking for, I think makes sense. Anyone else?
Just broadly, is there anything you feel like you need additional resources, support, you've got goals still on the table? Is there anything that you see gaps that you want us to try to figure out?
I appreciate the question, thank you. I feel pretty blessed to have all of the structures and systems in place here. And Dr. Garwood brought Brian Ritz to the district a few years ago, which really, he's gonna never leave, which has been fabulous. We also were able to implement the hiring of the MTSS specialist through our ESSER grant. And he's gonna speak to those positions later today or tonight. I think I'm good.
Okay.
I appreciate it. I'll think more about that. But I feel like we have a really hardworking team, and we all chip in and get it done. So thank you for asking.
That's good, thank you.
Part of that question will be answered when we get to the staffing.
I know that's fine.
Everybody else?
Okay, next presentation is an update on standards-based grading.
Take a seat. And back.
Okay. So while I am presenting the presentation, I would like to go on record to say that Brian Ritz really was the champion and the leader. This one I handed to him. And so if there are questions that I can't answer, I'm going to look to Brian to help with. So we did want to give you an update, also let you know what the recommendations that came out of the learning team were. So the learning team really occurred last year. we're a little late in getting these to you. The team was comprised of parents, coaches, teachers, administrators, board member, and an outside expert. So it was a very well-rounded team who shared a lot of perspectives around standards-based grading. So what did the process include? We developed a common purpose, a vision, guiding principles. We looked at research. We looked at effective practices in other districts, not just around us, but around the country. We looked at our own current reality and did a needs assessment and kind of a gap assessment of what is it that we were hoping for with standards-based grading when we initially launched that a number of years ago. And where have we perhaps fallen short? What's working well? What are we still missing? And kind of pull all of those pieces together to make some decisions. We also gathered feedback from teachers and from parents and from students through surveys, pulled all of that information together, and then the learning team really just synthesized all of that and came up with big picture recommendations. Kind of a similar process for all learning teams it was followed with this one. So why standards-based grading? Just a few bullet points here. It really strengthens the communication between home and school. Why do we give grades? We give grades to communicate how students are performing at grade level standards, where they are on the learning continuum, how they're doing. Parents want to know, how's my kid doing in reading? Like, right? How's my child doing in math? How are they doing in X, Y, Z? We also want to be able to report what students know and what they're able to do so that we know where potential gaps are to fill in. We want students to be reflective in their learning, and we want them to be engaged in the learning process. And through feedback, effective feedback, they're able to do that. If they don't receive effective feedback, they're not engaged in their learning. Kids don't naturally gravitate to thinking about how am I going to be a better learner. That's something that has to be nurtured by the adults around them. It separates academic achievement from learner qualities or behaviors. So thinking about not just I have an A in this, but I am able to persevere. I am a hard worker. I'm all the learner qualities really that are going to wrap around what we determine to be the D68 learner profile, right? So those pieces should completely have a play in the learner qualities that we are able to report out to parents on. And then it provides students multiple opportunities to demonstrate learning. So if you got a C on a math test in September, it does not mean that you have a C on your report card, right? How does that learning progress over time? You might not have done so well on a math test in September, but when you're able to demonstrate your learning around those standards on that test later, and you are able to demonstrate mastery, that is the report that comes to parents, not an average of every moment in that child's time during a given report card period. So some big recommendations from the team were first to create more opportunities to communicate with parents about their children's learning. So in the fall, parents come to an open house, a curriculum night, and they learn about the big idea of the whole school year. But we don't get into the nitty-gritty about what math instruction is going to look like, science instruction, social studies, et cetera, et cetera. So the team determined that to better communicate with parents, we would create trimester newsletters for our kindergarten through 5th grade students. So parents will receive and have received a trimester newsletter for their children. So when the first report card came home that ended trimester 1, they received the trimester 2 report card. So here's how your child, I think I put that back. You knew what I meant.
Okay.
Here's the report card for trimester 1, and then the newsletter for trimester 2 is in here so you know what's coming up. And then the same will happen with trimester 2 for trimester 3, and then trimester 1 newsletter next year will be given at the beginning of the year. We needed to use this year to develop the newsletters. So that has been a hit. Our grade levels across the district have collaborated to work on those because curriculum is similar across all of the buildings. The other big change is that we went from a three-letter system to 4. So the continuum of learning now begins with a 1, which is the beginning. Students really are just the very beginning stages of demonstrating mastery of concepts or skills, to a 2, which is emerging. They're starting to get it a little bit more under their belt. A 3 means they are approaching those grade level standards, and a 4 means that they are meeting those standards. So a little bit more flexibility in the continuum of learning is reported on the report cards now. We also switched to Infinite Campus, and with that came the opportunity to redesign the report cards. And also came with it the opportunity for a grading system that is being used by the junior high. Elementary, we are not there yet. We are going to move there. We're going slow to go fast because we have a number of these changes, especially with the redesign of the report card, that just takes a significant amount of energy and time to complete. So we want to do it well, which means we have to slow down a little bit. We also have had a smaller team, a subcommittee of the learning team, who has been working with Brian to work on some of these changes along the way, and then they reach back out to the learning team and to teachers and get feedback to help inform next steps for them. So what's still to come? Replacing some of our really broad categories that are on the report card by creating more grade level specific statements that are parent friendly. So instead of reading saying foundational skills and a parent saying, what does that mean? I have no idea what a foundational skill means. We would move more to language that is on the left that is a little better representative of what their child is actually learning. More still to come. We want to continue to sharpen our classroom assessment practices and our feedback practices using structures and strategies that are grounded in our teacher clarity work. So again, those learning intentions and success criteria. Really being able to hone in on those through assessments. And then we also would like to add more visual elements to the report card using different tools and using Infinite Campus so that, again, it's a little more parent friendly, especially for a lot of our families that speak a second language. So trying to just make that a little more visual, a little more appealing. So those are still to come. Questions?
I have a couple questions. Paradigms are hard to shift. And I think this is one of those topics that was not overly controversial when we implemented it, but it's certainly something I heard about from other parents, particularly parents whose children encounter difficulty upon leaving our district and going into high school, and all of a sudden being awash in, oh, my student's not getting all A's, but I was told they were all green. So I guess it's sort of to piggyback on your question is how are we assisting with that transition? And I do believe we did reintroduce grade letters into the 8th grade.
We did
At
in
some
8th
point.
grade in trimester.
Is that part of
Yes.
this plan?
That is part of the plan, that's been in place for a couple of years now. Yeah, and then the change to the 4 versus the 3 also gives a little bit more room for some of that. Because we're great, when a teacher puts a 2 or a 3 or a 4 in the report card for foundational skills, it's against where they are in that moment in time against end of year grade level standards. So helping parents understand that is also going to be really important.
Yeah, I think that's the big, I think you've recognized obviously some of the issues. I compared to the report that said masking wasn't that effective in fighting COVID, but it was because people refused to mask.
Yeah.
And I feel that there's a little bit of that we're providing parents with tools, but not every parent necessarily knows how to use them or is guided. And I think one of the things you said, the teacher clarity will be a big help. I know one of the complaints I've heard was that sort of the stock answers we could provide in a report card end up feeling either less than personal or not really providing the guidance that a parent would need to assist their children. So I think that feels better to me, that we've sort of drilled that out of the system.
We definitely, I don't think anyone loved the previous report card. It wasn't great. And so we're again slowly trying to get to the point where it is a meaningful piece of communication for families, because that's the whole purpose, is to communicate with parents how their kids are doing. So we want it to be something that they're able to read and understand and make sense of. And that's our goal.
Anyone else?
I'm just a bit, I was, full disclosure, was the board member that sat on that committee. But I had to miss the last couple of them for some other things going on in the family. But I am a bit curious, like if, and I'm not sure how to phrase this, but in the event that you have a child, for instance, that is in trimester 1 getting solid 4s, meaning they're where they're supposed to be by the end of the year, or it's like how then does this discussion happen for those families to be able to figure out how to support kids who maybe need additional pushes at home, or like to be able to stay engaged? Because I mean, I've also seen the reverse where they're like, okay, well, I've already met the standards and I'm super bored, so that can turn some
I
interesting directions.
think that comes through communication with the teacher, through parent-teacher conferences, and just those regular interactions between report cards. So your child is already at a 4, which means they're already meeting standards and it's November. So here's what's happening in the classroom to push them and to extend their learning, to enrich their learning. So those are conversations that should be happening between teachers and parents.
The 2 biggest transitions that our students are going to go through from elementary to junior high and then from junior high into high school. Have we checked to see for our students as they go from elementary school to junior high, what the correlation is between those students that are scoring whatever, 3s, 2s, 1s at the 5th grade level, and then how they do entering junior high? And is there a way that we could do something similar for our 8th grade students? I don't know if we have access to their freshman grades or their performance, if there's any sort of agreement with 219.
I think there is.
But I was just wondering what, if anything, we've done to check how our report cards at the elementary school level reflect performance when they make that leap.
So I think we would be able to look at that now because the report card looks the same for both.
Mhm.
Previously, it did not. It looked a little different. So I think that that would be something that we would be able to look at going forward.
I'd be curious.
Yeah,
I think it'd be
for
helpful
sure.
to see, since we're trying to make the report card a useful tool, that's one of the ways that I think we could measure how it prepares families for those big jumps.
Right, right.
But thank you for all of this, it's really helpful.
Anything else? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
To our superintendent.
I've just got a couple of short little updates. There is the last solar eclipse in our lifetime is coming to us on April 8th. The last one we had here, I think, was in 2017, but I guess it's gonna be quite a while before another one occurs. That happens to be on a Monday, and the peak is supposed to be about 2 p.m. This afternoon, we ordered the special little geek glasses to be able to stare up at the eclipse with protection. So we'll be getting those out to all staff members and students, and I think there'll be some organized science activities. There's a plethora of opportunity there for kids to be able to get into some science concepts there. So that ought to be exciting. Some of you who were on the board a few years ago, I think prior to COVID, will recall that we funded a group of parents to become certified translators through the Language Access Resource Center, otherwise known as LARC, a few years ago. And we have begun work to try to recruit a new group of parents to continue to expand our translating capacities. It costs about $425 in tuition per parent. Last time around, you guys all agreed that was an effort that was well worth the $425. Part of the return on that is after we put the parents through the certification process, they owe us a certain amount of hours through their internship because they have to get a certain amount of hours there. So they do the hours with us, and then after that, we pay parents. So it's sort of a career pathway, or at least a money earning pathway for some of our parents. We're trying to fill a cohort right now, and we're a few away from our maximum, or the number we need to do that. So just wanted to update you that we're going to do that again. Our goal is to have about 20 more people, so at $425 per person, a little under $10,000. So, and then also recently, last week, I believe, we had our food audit. And Mr. Berry, what was our takeaway from that?
Very good. They found 3 breakfasts that were insufficient on the day that they audited breakfast over at Devonshire, out of nearly 150. I feel like we went through that day. So, some were sent back, but some people didn't have enough components. So about $10 worth. 0 lunches the following day, which is amazing after about 200 or so lunches served. There's no fines or anything as long as you're under $600. So our $8.50, we were good. All the policies and procedures and everything else that they found were in place and good. We need to start redoing our old meetings we used to have with parents, students, the food service company, and ourselves. That's kind of the big takeaway after COVID, kind of restarting those up in the next couple of years. So other than that, we were right on scale and looking forward for the future.
Thank you. And that concludes superintendent reports.
Very nice, wonderful. All right. Our next item of business is the reading and acceptance of minutes. May I have a motion?
I motion to approve the minutes from January 18th, 2024, Board of Education regular meeting. Paul Jordan?
Yes.
Joseph?
Yes.
Monitor? Yes. Ruffner?
Yes.
Disturbance?
Yes.
Sullivan?
Yes.
Marshall?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. The consent agenda is our next item of business. Does any member wish to remove any items for separate consideration? May I have a motion?
I motion to approve the consent agenda as presented, which includes the personnel report authorizing hire of administrative staff,
retirement and discipline of licensed staff, to hire, leave of absence, resignation, and termination of classified staff, including the 5-day unpaid suspension of Pete Metalis, and termination of Ashurina, how do you say her last name? Clomie. Financial reports, pay orders and expenditures, and second readings of board education policies for 130, for 160, 190, 200, 210, 220, and 630.
Second.
And before you vote on that, I'd like to introduce Dr. Grenz. He has somebody who is part of the consent agenda on the personnel report that he would like to introduce.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for being here. Thank you for having me. I want to wish Mr. Brian Berry here, again, just continued success in his new opportunity next year. We're really excited for Ryan with that new chapter. We're also really excited to introduce to you this evening Ms. Kenya Austin. She is here as the future Assistant Superintendent of Business, CSBO. Ms. Austin brings more than 18 years of education finance experience, including but not limited to the following. She is the current Director of Business Operations at Niles Township High School's District 219. We heard it mentioned twice tonight. Now we've got a direct line.
Give us all the skinny.
Director of Business Operations and Technology for Country Club Hills, School District 160. She was also a regional financial consultant for the Illinois State Board of Education, so really knows the ins and outs of finance in the Illinois State Board of Education public school system. The interview process, we had a series of stakeholders involved. It was really helpful. We had multiple interviews. Included in the interviews, we had representatives from the Education Association, we had district and school administrators, many of you here tonight, directors, administrative assistant, and even a member from the Board of Education. The feedback regarding Ms. Austin was absolutely and overwhelmingly positive, as well as from references. Super excited to be welcoming her to the team and really excited for the future together. So welcome, Kenya.
Okay, he's making me speak, so bear with me. I did write a little speech. I swear it's not long. Okay, good evening. I'm filled with gratitude and excitement as I express my heartfelt thank you for including me as part of the School District 68. First and foremost, I would like the appreciation of the board for electing me to this position and entrusting me with that responsibility. I already know Ryan, so I got you, okay? I appreciate y'all commitment to me, and I'm gonna show my proof of worthiness here at District 68. I'm excited to embark on this new chapter, and I promise to dedicate myself to the betterment of the district and success of the students. Thank you for trusting me, support, and your warm welcome. Together, let's continue to make School District 68 an amazing district for staff and students.
Right, now you can vote.
Lonergan.
Yes.
Ruffner.
Yes.
Stebbins.
Yes.
Sullivan.
Yes.
Warshaw.
Yes.
Jordan.
Yes.
Joseph.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Wonderful. All right, I'm gonna shift the order of our reports and discussion items. If we could start with the ELL Parent Center, the Early Childhood Facility discussion. We'll bump it up to our architects. Thank you.
I made a pretty slide for you.
That's not.
That's Good evening, it's Dr. Brenson, sorry. Thank you for being here and having us. Tonight with me, I've got Jennifer Costanza. Mr. Colby Lewis, the other lead architect from our architect firm, Mr. Dave Torres, here for support, but he doesn't like to talk much. We're just kind of give a broad overview of where we've been kind of in the process, looking at a new ECC for our students going forward. So, take it away.
Good evening, thanks for having us. I wanted to just share with you a little bit about where we stand right now with this project. So the first thing that we did as a group with the members from District 68 was to go out and kind of see what's out there. So we took a look at 3 recently opened facilities that are in this general region and took a look at see what they had for what they were using. We met with a lot of their directors and we spoke with their teachers and looked at all of their facilities and different spaces. Down, okay. That mystery slide again. And so we looked at a lot of different parts of throughout their facilities, from the practical, where do these teachers store all of their things, to the different classrooms that they have, and then some of the inspiring spaces that are the common spaces that they have, and how they were engaging the students throughout those spaces. And then even to look at things like how they're expressing what's going on inside to the outside, to the public, how they're using tactile and little activities down at the very low toddler height to get the kids engaged throughout the spaces, what spaces that they have that are focused for the kids' hands-on work, some of the STEM and Make It labs, and even the intervention spaces that they have located between pairs of classrooms, and how they are able to bring the teacher or the interventionist to the student rather than having to waste instruction time and getting the student to another office down the hall, and how those are integrated into the corridors and to the classrooms. So a little bit about what we are. So after all of those tours and we saw lots of inspiring things, the District 68 group kind of went away. They did some talking and presented us with a list of some of the really things that they had prioritized, that they saw that they liked, some things that they didn't, and how they might want to incorporate those things into the project. So now we are currently working on developing the site plan. So one of the concerns was making sure that there was enough queuing for parent drop-off and a separate and different location for bus drop-off. So we are currently working on developing and revising the site plan of the parking lot area by the junior high in order to lengthen that queue area, provide additional parking, and keep a safe and separate bus location. We will be working in the future now how to incorporate stormwater management and where that will be located and how it will be integrated, as well as where we can put some of the outdoor play areas and how that gets integrated with the plan. As a group, we kind of landed on, we presented a few different options. This is where we landed for the layout of the building. The main entry you can see is between the blue area and the other areas of the building, which gives the longer queue area for the parent drop-off where the main entry is. Visitors come in through a secure vestibule. They're immediately entering into the school administration, which is paired across the hall from the teacher services area and teacher collaboration spaces. And so then to the right of the main entrance is where we have all of the educational spaces. So roughly 8 classrooms, one of which we're designing as a STEM classroom, which is envisioned to be a very open and dynamic space that kind of brings people in and the excitement in as people come into the facility. Between the classrooms, we have some core spaces. So again, that intervention space, some toilet room spaces for the students, and then a gross motor room for the students to use that's central to all of the educational spaces, which then opens off into this we have it labeled student commons. We're not really sure what to call it yet, but it's meant to be kind of a gathering space, a communal space that can celebrate that area. Oh, that came out of, so that space kind of came out of some of the things we saw during our tour, some very tall, open, light and airy volumes that the students could walk through. We're currently kind of weighing some options on how these spaces get expressed and how they're being designed as far as their volumes go. So that open gathering area could be something that just we bring in light in through skylights. It could be something that's even expressed further by popping that area up and then really kind of creating a large volume with sunlight to come in through clerestory windows. An item that was really important to the team is this idea of bringing nature into the facility itself. So there was a lot of talk of bringing wood and how we can bring that into the space, to this idea of having wood structure that's exposed to the spaces is being explored. as opposed to the top picture, which is currently the space that we're in, right, a drop ceiling. So really kind of allowing these spaces to become warm. We're looking at different ways and how we can incorporate that into the building. It could be something that's done throughout the entire facility. It could be something that we focus only on where the students are, so it's just that classroom and student commons wing. Or it could be just where we have that gathering space. It could, pop it up, allow it to be the wood. So we're weighing those options back and forth during design. And finally, we're starting to really hone in on how the layout is happening within the overall concept of the building. We've been discussing the teacher admin areas as well as the admin areas as well as the teacher services and what adjacencies those are and how they interact with the students in the corridors, what's accessible, what isn't. And still to come is kind of really how we want to express what's going on with that building to the outside. Colby's been having fun playing with some sketches showing, even some playful windows that might mimic a parent holding a child's hand. Do we want it to actually look like the junior high, or how do we want to kind of move forward? So there's a lot more discussion and decisions to come on the design portion of things. So I'll turn it over to.
So as Jennifer kind of discussed, this is kind of what was presented back in August, is kind of, when we got the go ahead from the board to kind of start the design process. So the original concept was roughly 15,000 square feet. As you can kind of see, just a simple little rectangle coming off the junior high with the play structure on the side. And then after visiting and doing all these site visits, we kind of saw, okay, well, what do we really need in the space? The different concepts we saw, as Jennifer mentioned, the STEM area. We saw this beautiful, huge table, which is kind of like a reading instructional table you'd see in a classroom, where a teacher might have 4 or 5 students around them giving instruction at the same time. One of the locations we saw basically the same type of table, only you could fit an entire classroom of little people, at least, 20 little people around, and they called it the Make It table. And it was just amazing how, the teacher is basically in the middle of the board here and instructing all the students at the same time and doing hands-on work that you typically couldn't get in a regular classroom. You have to go to different tables and different groups. So that's kind of the idea behind the STEM area, with also the possibility of the future of, if everything works out and enrollment shoots up, we could take that space and make it into another classroom if we need to. So kind of keeping the design structure there while also, the openness and the options in the future. Also adding in a gross motor space, to kind of open up to have those parent meetings as part of our Preschool for All grant. We're required to have parent meetings at night, parent institutes, other types of structures that we need, kind of a bigger, more open space that wouldn't really flow with the kids necessarily going into the junior high. We need that meeting space there. Other things that are just different from the original concept, the square footage, obviously when you add gross motor, a couple more other areas, you increase the square footage. So unfortunately, the square footage increased about 3,000 square feet. We're down classrooms, but we do have the Make It space, different design elements. The gross motor room takes up some of those other classroom spaces. Shared toilet rooms is kind of how we decided we could scale down some of the space instead of having a different toilet room in each individual classroom, kind of having that Jack and Jill type space in between really just cuts down on the number of toilets, therefore the number of overall space. Conference room space is also added, additional office space, and then that shared therapy space is really nice because the toilet rooms are in between, but also having like a Jack and Jill therapy space where where we said, you lose that instructional time. If you need to take the child out of the classroom, go all the way down to the social worker's office, or go all the way down to the psychologist or the speech path's office, to kind of be able to do it right there in the classroom, where you might be having a couple kids, you'll be able to take one from this classroom and one from that classroom, and combine their minutes together. As we get to it, kind of a broad picture. Oh, yeah.
Can I just ask a question?
Absolutely.
So, obviously we're doing this in part so that more students have access. So since the classroom amount has gone down, but the space is physically bigger, are we still on track to have the same enrollment that we were looking to have, or like how does the space affect that?
Right, so right now we've got 5 classrooms at the current ECC, so this gives us even additional space. I don't know, again, it would be great if we could have every 3-year-old and 4-year-old in the program. I think there's still some space to grow. It gives us some opportunity to get there over the next few years. There are potentially additional growth opportunities to the building in the future. If we have to have 16 classrooms, again, that would be fantastic. Yes.
Another thing is initially, NTDSE was interested in having a few classroom spaces for them to be able to use that we would rent out to them. They since have let us know they do not need to have those additional spaces. So that allowed us to go with less spaces and to be a little bit more creative with creating the specialized spaces that you're saying tonight.
I mean, even those 2 additional classrooms gets us anywhere between probably 40 and 80 additional students from what we're on top of now.
What was the goal though when it was at 10? Like what's
I
the
think the
goal?
goal was
40 to
about
80?
the same, but also, we don't wanna build it and then in 2 years be like, oh, we're out of space. That's the worst case scenario.
And so each classroom space would, assuming if it was like the regular ed space, could have 20 kids in the morning, 20 in the afternoon. So, special ed classrooms, the cap is lower than that, but it gives us plenty of room to grow it.
Thank you for clarifying.
The last thing we wanted to do was build something that wasn't big enough.
So with that, just overall space, a very broad picture of a budget at this point, without having specifics, it's just a basic, take the square footage and multiply it by what we think, we're looking for in square foot. When we add that kind of 3,000 additional square feet, from what we presented in August, we're looking at about $1.5 million more than where we were in August. But again, that includes kind of getting into a lot of the details, actually finally going on the site visits, seeing what we need, seeing the opportunities that other students in surrounding districts have. It's kind of like you don't want to build and have the same kind of thing that we have now, something that was built in the 60s. You want to kind of build it and build it for the future.
Something that'll make the community proud to be
Absolutely.
part of District 68.
Absolutely. And part of that also includes, starting with geothermal. It'll be the first part there. It's going to cost a little more at the top or at the beginning, but then hopefully some rebates, through tax incentives, and then long term, kind of have those minimal costs with the additional, electrical and gas needs there. The preliminary timeline is still about the same. We hope to in September, all the details and everything should be mostly done by the end of the school year, but out to bid in September. We'd open bids in October. The Board of Education hopefully would give the approval of those bids in November, and then construction would start a little over a year from now in April next year, and then substantial completion. Obviously, you can't do a bunch of, work around the building outside in the winter, but everything inside would be done and ready to open the new ECC in January of 2026, and then final site work and everything would be done in the spring and summer that following year. So I think the purpose of this is just to kind of give an update and see, are we on the right track? Does the board feel comfortable moving forward in this direction? I know, I provided the projections the last time we did this, and obviously conservative, financial background had me a little worried. So I will say I have already talked to bond counsel to see, what, if anything, we kind of needed to have a little extra funding in our back pocket, what those possibilities would be. Nothing needs to be done at this point, obviously, but I just want to have that prepared and ready to go if in case that, we did need to come to that.
Did we have a contingency percentage in the original estimate? Or is it, I know, was that about a 10% increase on the overall?
Overall, I mean 1,500 or 15,000 to 18. So, yeah, I mean you're looking right around 10%.
Yeah.
Is there a contingency in the budget? I'm sure
Yes.
there's
Yes.
at least 5 to 10.
Yeah, it was about a 5% design contingency and then a 5% construction contingency.
I mean, part of it too is just overall inflation and construction costs continuing to go up year after year after year. I mean, I think a few years ago, we were looking at potentially combining this building and the transportation department before we went out and bought a maintenance shop, and I think at that point, new construction that was being considered. We were looking at a little over $350, $375 per square foot. Now we're at $450. So unfortunately, the costs are what the costs are. But we just want to, before we get into too many details and too much real design work, want to make sure the board's comfortable with this. And as Dr. Garwood said, we want to provide something that one allows us to expand, and two, something that the board and the community will be proud of as a new building and learning environment for our students.
When I look at the comparison of sort of the original, just 2 straight rows of classrooms with a hallway between them, it's hard to get a whole lot of excitement about that and what that might do for our children. But when you look at what we're starting to design here, it's very exciting.
And doing the site visits for, Dr. Garwood, Ms. Jacobellis, the architects, Mr. Nelson, our director of operations, and myself, and then Dr. Stemageni got to join us for the last one too, to kind of get her little curriculum feel. Still curriculum, it's the little kids, but they're still learning. So I think seeing the opportunities out there, and we don't want to. There's no gold-plated toilets or anything like that.
We have expectations.
If that's what you want, I'm sure we can provide this. But just to kind of, there's nothing really to vote on tonight with this project, but kind of just to kind of get the feel. I don't know if you want to.
We just wanted to share sort of our progress update.
Right.
We hope that you'll be as excited as we are.
Yeah, it's very exciting.
Can you have a good calculator on your phone? This project. Right.
We did recently see sort of an overall design of the new apartment structures that are going to go in north of Old Orchard over there too. So we're excited about the potential for new growth.
Saw that on the news.
And the finances that will come to this.
There's north of Old Orchard Mall is now contracted with a contractor to build other additional apartments there too. So
I saw a rendering and
it's nice. So while we are spending, some money to really improve our services here in District 68, we're also looking at being able to replenish money with a lot of this new growth. So it's a nice set of circumstances.
Sure, it's a good investment, right?
yes.
Make sure you're still thumbs up.
There's a low for her.
I feel grateful. I think I'm the only one whose kid will get to utilize.
There will be future board members.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Of the current.
Yes.
Don't count them all out yet.
You know, you just jinxed one of us.
Just
You've just
count it
jinxed
out.
one of us into having a child, is what you're just saying.
Careful what you wish for.
I wasn't sure that's top of your.
We're all great. All right. I believe we move to the triple one conference resolution. Oh, yes, why do it anyway?
This is gonna take roughly 60 seconds. It's gonna be like we went right to the triple one conference.
Got it, okay.
There was a meeting this month. I was able to attend about half of it. It was the Cook County Assessor. The main focus that EdRed has, there's the new legislative cycle starting, so bills are being introduced. Things that we've already talked about here. They're trying to get money for a new arrival grant, so there are legislators that have reintroduced bills. There's a bill pending that I think we would really support that would give more local control over the use of schools as polling places. There is a bill that, this one I'm still a little ignorant on how it would hit our district, but it would be to try to equalize reimbursement for high-cost private special education placements. So it's going to make the reimbursements from the state tied to the annual tuition for the individual districts. So I'm not sure how that would hit us. I like the idea in general, and EdRed supports it, but I don't know how for a 68 it would hit. And then they talked about TIF reform. Did I hit 60 seconds?
4 seconds to spare.
We'll explore the reimbursement thing to see what we can find out.
Okay.
And I know a neighboring district is very interested in getting the local school boards to pass that TIF resolution as well.
Gotcha.
District 69 is affected by several large TIFs as well as 219. So there's some interest in getting the school boards in the area to all pass that resolution. So that'll be something we'll talk more about in a future meeting.
Sounds good.
Great. Did you, Annie, do you see overlap with the advocacy ambassador?
No,
Is
I
that
don't.
Conversation, not any
No,
of it?
like the things, can I say what, like the couple of them?
Yeah, just because we've all were invited via email to join the IASB Advocacy Ambassador Program. I don't know if anybody else has. Annie has?
Yeah.
Yeah, if you just want to speak to what that,
I thought one of the interesting things that they're really lobbying for this session is that no mandate can be passed without funding to accompany it. I know. It's something like there's been 730 something mandates and only 4 have ever been funded. So that's what IASB is really working on. There's other ones, but that one I feel like they really hit a lot. That was what they really wanted everyone to know. And then for the triple whatever conference, my brain doesn't totally remember everything anymore because that was a long time ago, but here's what I do know. However the board recommended, not our board, the IASB board recommended, that's how everything landed. It was actually quite contentious. 73.5 was actually one of the really outspoken districts, specifically on the SRO one. There was a lot of debate on, I would say, every single one of these, and then we had to do like re-ups and do you even want to hear this? It was very sad when it basically was like no for most people. But yeah, it was interesting. All of it passed, all whatever they wanted to pass, they passed, and that was it.
Thank you.
It was thrilling.
It was one, we were all relatively, we were pretty split. On thing. Yeah, I mean, it was an odd year.
The stuff we were split on were the stuff that overall it was split, and so they did let us vote on do we want to talk about this further, but once someone would come up, they would talk about it, and then everyone voted, no, we don't want to hear it.
It's a very,
They want to get back to
the
the
system.
rest of the
All right, now we will move to the ELO Parent Center Intergovernmental Agreement.
So our 3-year intergovernmental agreement between District 68, 72, 73, 73.5, and 219 is over at the end of this year. So we're looking at a new 3-year intergovernmental agreement to span 24 through 27. The only change really in the agreement is the per pupil fee to be able to belong to the parent center. When it was first opened, I want to say about 14 plus years ago, it was $12.50 per pupil. A number of years ago, it went up to $14.50 per pupil for the member districts. Once upon a time, all the districts except Lincolnwood belonged, so there was a bigger amount, bigger pool of districts paying into it. Some of the districts that are further away and have much smaller EL populations eventually decided to drop out. So the funding stream went down. We had a fund balance at the time. But over time, that fund balance has been spent down. The cost of everything has gone up dramatically. And we moved away from the parent mentor grant this last year. It was a unanimous decision by the superintendents because of the new stipulations they put on it that took it away from some, gave it to others, and created a real uneven ability to provide services for kids. So Sabiha expertly designed a new system which is going very, very well. I'm anxious to have her come and share in her spring report with us what that looks like. I'm hearing wonderful things, but again, we lost some grant money there to be able to do that. It expands services, but at the same time, it costs us a little bit more. So we're at a point where we need to increase the tuition, the per pupil fee up to $25 per pupil. I mean, it's hardly gone up really in 14, 15 years now. Our portion as a district, I think, would go from close to $20,000 to a little over $30,000 a year to be able to support the parent center. My hope and recommendation is that the board is willing to sign on to this new agreement because the services that they provide are irreplaceable and of great benefit and value to the community and to the 5 school districts that belong. Several of the other school districts have already, their boards have already approved the increase. This is just here for discussion tonight. The vote would come at the next board meeting. Any questions I could help answer? We'll bring it back. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. And now I would like to reintroduce Dr. Samajeni one more time to talk about the deferred and delayed learning environment learning team. If you recall, this was on our mass strategic plan. We were just getting ready to send out invites to get it up and running the week that COVID hit, and it got delayed for quite a bit of time. So I'm excited that we're actually able to come circle back around and get something worked on that has been on the to-do list for a number of years now.
So Ryan mentioned this last month in his report on the strategic plan. And tonight we are providing some information to you. And then next month we'll be asking for you to vote on the recommendations. So tonight is really just kind of about giving you an update on the process so far and the recommendations that the team has made. So these pictures, I don't know how well you can see them, are actual pieces of furniture at Old Orchard. We have one classroom whose student tables are old computer tables, which are lovely and heavy. We have other tables that have been covered in contact paper mache, to cover up some of the unsightly. Yes, so some decoration there. So we are looking to improve our learning spaces and improve some of these fun pieces of furniture that currently exist in our spaces. So our learning team comprised, as they usually are, of administrators. We have 2 instructional support team members, 4 elementary teachers, 5 junior high teachers, a music teacher, and 3 parents. Our goals were to think about the purpose of District 68 learning spaces, determine how to design learning spaces to meet those purposes, and then to determine a timeline for the project. We had some guiding questions. We also thought a lot about the quote that you see there. It's not about decorating learning spaces, it's about designing them to amplify learning. So how can we, through this process, think about amplifying the learning for our students? The little blue box on the right, we spent some time talking about how different public spaces are designed intentionally for very specific purposes. So if you think about the design of a coffee shop, it's to create a warm and welcoming vibe. Like you want to be there, you want to hang out, you want to drink coffee, and pay $9 for a latte, right? So it has a very specific and intentional purpose. They're not designed to look sterile or feel sterile. Same thing for libraries. They're meant to be quiet spaces. Bookstores, they want you to browse. They want you to feel comfortable walking around. The DMV, Ryan argued with me on this one. Why are you putting the DMV there? And I'm like, because it's designed intentionally, right? It's to move you through the space, and they're there for efficiency. They don't care if you're comfortable, right?
Designed to make you suffer.
Right. Grocery stores, same thing. They put all the fun, expensive things on the end cap. So mall courtyards are there for you to have sustenance so you can go shopping some more. So thinking about the intentionality behind all of spaces and how they're designed and what the purpose is, let's use that same thinking when we're thinking about our classrooms. So what are they for? Who are they serving? How should they serve our students? What role does student voice play in this design? And then how do we create these learning spaces that support students to be the flexible elements in the space, not necessarily to have the furniture be the flexible piece. So a little bit of a different spin on that thinking. Here's just a little bit of research. There is actually some research out there, not tons and tons, but there are pieces. In one study done, 92% of teachers surveyed believe that classroom design had a strong impact on students' learning and achievement. And another study through the University of Salford, the classroom environment can affect academic progress over a year by as much as 25%. And then so many literature reviews that really just indicated that flexible seating options increase student engagement. So again, when students can be flexible in where they're able to sit and learn, whether they have a standing desk versus a bar height desk versus the computer table, right? So places and spaces that fit their learning style and their learning needs allow them to be more engaged in their learning. So part of what we did was identify what our purpose was for our learning spaces, and it really was to create a safe and comfortable learning environment that promoted collaboration, independence, student engagement to promote academic success. A little of all of those pieces kind of combined together. We surveyed teachers, and we also surveyed some of our students to ask about current spaces and what you like about your current space, what do you not like, if you had a wish list, what would it be, what are you hopeful for, and these are some of the themes that emerged. More flexible, mobile, lightweight furniture, things like charging options for devices, different size furniture for different learners that are in the classroom, more storage, comfortable seating, a movable teacher podium so that they can move their items around as they go from a small group section of the classroom to the whole group section, et cetera, et cetera. Different heights of tables. All the kids don't come in one size, right? You look at some of our 6th graders, some of our 7th and 8th graders at the junior high, and they are a very diverse group in terms of, some of them are adult size already, and some of them don't look like they should be 6th graders yet. So having furniture that allows for some flexibility in that. Need better lighting was another theme that came up, and I know that's being addressed through some of our building construction that has already occurred at Stinson and will happen at Devonshire this summer. And then teachers wanted more windows. That I don't know that we're going to be able to address, but it was a theme to bring in more of that natural light. So taking all of that, we decided to take a couple of field trips. We went to educational environments, the Frank Cooney Company, their showroom in Elk Grove Village, to see different options of furniture possibilities and just kind of ignite our thinking about what was possible. We also toured 2 schools in Glenview District 34 who recently went through a learning spaces overhaul. We went to a K2 building, and we went to a junior high and looked at how they had designed their learning spaces. Got some interesting tidbits from them and talked with their teachers that were in the spaces about how they were using them, how the kids were reacting to them. Pulled all of that information back, and the team worked on developing ideas for our spaces. So a couple of the pieces that kind of came from that, thinking about construction that is going to be taking place in some of our buildings over the next couple of summers, thinking about budget, Ryan and his small numbers. Other than, she told me I had to
I said
say
you
that.
need to say cute little numbers.
Because she said curriculum. Some of the other logistical pieces with moving out, finding new homes for current furniture, just there's a lot of moving parts with the furniture overhaul for an entire district. So because of all of those moving parts and pieces, we determined that a multi-year project was probably the best approach to do this in 3 phases. So I'll share with you in just a moment what those 3 phases are. We also wanted to have some pilot opportunities for some of our learning team members. So we were able to pilot furniture in 5 different classrooms. We have a PD around how to use furniture flexibly for collaborative learning coming up in 2 weeks for the learning team as well. Our teachers and our administrators gave feedback on the pilot furniture. We used a Monday after early release afternoon to have teachers go to the pilot classrooms. They sat at the desks, they looked at the tables, and we gathered feedback from them in that regard. At the junior high, Dave Wiviot was one of our pilot teachers in social studies, and he set up a schedule for other teachers to come teach a class in his space, and he went to their space so that the teachers and the kids could interact with the setup and kind of get a feel for how it would work or not work for them. We've had a couple of design meetings with Educational Environment, Frank Cooney Company, and the next piece is they have developed some quotes for us for the different spaces that we're looking at for phase 1. We're hoping to come back to you for board approval next month, and then we would immediately place the order so that we're able to ensure that we receive the furniture for August installation into classrooms. Those are kind of all of the pieces we've been through and where we're looking to go next. So in our pilot classrooms, as I said, we had 5 classrooms that piloted. We had a kindergarten at Stinson, a 1st grade at Highland, and then we had an ELA, a math, and a social studies classroom at Old Orchard. And the pieces that we piloted included obviously student furniture. So we had desk options in a variety of shapes, which is really kind of interesting. We had tables in a variety of heights. Some that had the ability to nest so that teachers could push them out of the way and have different activities going on. One of the teacher at Highland who piloted was able to actually push some of her furniture aside during an indoor recess day, and the kids had a dance party. And she's like, I would not have been able to do that with the old furniture. Then a couple days later, she was doing a math lesson, and they were doing a number line activity, and she was able to push the furniture to the side, and they did a human number line activity versus just looking at one on the view board. So she was excited about the possibilities that it opened up for instruction. We also piloted some teacher furniture, like a mobile teaching lectern, and a file storage cart that would replace the traditional teacher desk, of which we actually don't have very many. Most teachers don't really desire to have a teacher's desk in their classroom any longer. We also had small group furniture, different styles of meeting tables and stools. Some stools that get a little bit of wiggle for students. Some that get a little bit more support, like in our kindergarten classroom, we didn't want as much wiggle for them. They have enough wiggle on their own. And then some soft seating options, some fun things like rocker chairs, ottomans, campfire logs, which were a really big hit, but they did not make it into the quote, unfortunately. Lily pad seats around a low floor table, so students actually are sitting on the floor on just a little pad, and right up underneath a little table, and it's a lot of fun little things. So we tried all of those pieces in our pilot classrooms. Here is what the pilot classrooms look like. So kindergarten classroom, I just wanted to give you a visual of some of the furniture that was in the pilot classroom, and then a visual representation of generally what it looked like sitting in the classroom space. An additional piece that kindergarten will have is in terms of dramatic play. We are looking at purchasing a new play kitchen for each of the kindergarten teachers, and then we're looking at purchasing 9 different dramatic play stations that would rotate between all of the kindergarten teachers over the course of the year, so kids get multiple experiences instead of everyone having a kitchen and an easel, and the kids get a kitchen and an easel experience. They'll get multiple. So this was our kindergarten classroom. Here is first. Second grade would follow the same model for furniture. They're closely related in terms of student needs. So when second grade comes into the picture in phase 2, they would receive the same furniture that first grade is going to receive. Social studies and ELA pretty much had a similar setup. So there are different pieces in here for them. And then math had a little bit different. We all thought we would like these desks that you see in the top right corner. They're diamond-shaped desks. We liked the circle aspect of it, but they take up a lot of room. And then there is lost square footage space with the circle in the middle. Plus, we thought the kids are all going to drop things in the middle, and that's all that's going to happen is somebody's crawling underneath to pick things up. So those did not make it into the final plan. So recommendations really are around a timeline for purchasing different materials. So we're looking at replacing classroom furniture across all 4 buildings in year 1. But in grade department clusters, so over 3 years. So in next year, every elementary would receive new furniture for their kindergarten and first grade classrooms. So everyone gets a little something. And every classroom teacher actually, regardless if they're getting furniture or not, would receive a new lectern for their use next year. So everyone receives something. Our additional year 1 classrooms would be the ELA, the math and the social studies classrooms, and then our elementary K2 RISE classrooms, because their furniture will match what first grade is receiving. And then in year 2, we would focus on 2nd and 3rd grade, our 3rd through 5th grade RISE classroom. At Old Orchard, we would look at our science classrooms, our ESL and Spanish classrooms. all of our K-8 special ed resource classrooms, Old Orchard, Rise. And then we would look at art and music classrooms, reading and math specialists spaces. Year 3 would be everyone else. So we would wrap up in year 3, and then somewhere within this, we are going to need to figure out what, if anything, we're going to do with common space upgrades. So thinking about our cafeterias and lunch tables. Where are we in the lifespan of those? Thinking about some of our LMC spaces that haven't been updated. Thinking about Old Orchard's common meeting space that they have on their second floor. I think it's their second floor. So just common spaces, and as well as our outdoor spaces. So all those extra pieces, we want to make sure that we address in some way. We need to continue to work on developing that plan.
Kenya. Whew.
I know, right?
It's impressive.
Yeah. I get. I used to work with Frank Cooney, so I know them very well.
So, recommendation for furniture purchase. Our classroom furniture would be made up of student furniture, so a combination of desks and tables with a variety of heights in some classrooms, chairs with a little bit of bounce for movement, and then classroom furniture. Some soft seating options, small group tables, stools for alternate seating, dramatic play, as I mentioned, for kindergarten. Primary would also receive mailbox centers, a teaching easel, and book display cases. And then teacher furniture, as I mentioned again, would be that lectern or a teaching station, and mobile storage cabinets. The quote was attached in the board packet for you, so that you can see specifically what is in each setup for kindergarten first, and then the 3 different classrooms at Old Orchard.
Just a quick question, and this is I'm not looking for a precise answer. Because this conversation began pre-COVID, when we look at the learning spaces and the furniture quote, do we have any sense of what the projected amount of spending would be before COVID, and kind of how does it look kind of in current times? I mean, is this about the amount that you would have expected a couple of years ago, or have things?
I had no idea what any of this cost.
Okay.
So when the quote came in, my husband would laugh at that. But when the quote came in, Ryan, I said, "Is it what you expected?" And he said, "I actually expected a little bit less." And he asked me what I expected, and I'm like, "I had no idea, really." But interesting tidbit about 34, Glenview 34, that we went to visit. They started this process before COVID, right? And COVID interrupted some of their plans, and they actually wound up having we noticed they didn't really have any soft seating for students. Their rooms were pretty minimalistic. It was just interesting, and we commented on there are no soft seating. There's no small group table. There's no things you would normally expect to see in a kindergarten first or second grade classroom. And we were told that because they were interrupted in COVID and had to kind of come back to the drawing board after COVID, prices had increased so dramatically that they wound up having to cut a lot of the pieces that they thought that they were going to purchase.
Were they, to your knowledge, engaging in a 21st century learning kind of approach to reimagining their classrooms in the way that we strategically were, again, pre-COVID? Was that their goal?
That was their goal.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
The nice thing about this, despite the large expenditure, is that it ought to last for 30 years or so.
Better last.
It's not a reoccurring expense, so.
No, I just we started this thinking so long ago, and I just didn't know what your impressions were. So Ryan, you thought it would be?
I thought it'd be a little less. Now, what Dr. Samajani didn't mention was that some of the furniture on here, we're actually able to use some grant funds. We were allocated additional Title I funds. So basically the higher cost that I thought, and you know, after seeing Glenview, I'm like, oh, this isn't that bad. They don't have all this stuff. And then our teachers are like, well, we need, you know, some of the soft seat, like what are you talking about? You know, it was very bare in some of the classrooms, but you know, we're able to kind of get down to the cost that I expected using the additional allocations or additional grant funds, which is, you know, always nice to be able to.
And it'll
Yeah.
be nice not to have some of our classrooms look like a rummage sale. 'Cause,
Right.
you know, some of it has been, you know, teachers have brought things in over time that they've gotten from different places. So it looks very piecemeal and, you know, not nearly as nice as we'd like to provide for our kids and teachers.
We're hoping that about 85,000 of the purchase price will be able to come from title funds. So we have submitted an amendment for our new allocation that we received, which is a little more generous than normal. And I was able to write into the grant how it would be. I reached out to our principal consultant to find out if it was an allowable expense, because typically furniture is not. And she said it depends on how you word it, how you message it. But we attached it to our needs assessment. We attached it to our data around small group instruction. So the pieces that the $85,000 would cover would be small group instruction pieces. So the small group table, the stools, the easel, some of those pieces. So that will help the bottom line a little bit.
And I imagine the grant is one-time grant funding.
Yeah,
Well,
yes, but we get Title I
every year.
funding every
Yeah.
year, so.
So if it does get approved and we're able to use that, then I can write that into the phase 2 for those pieces for those classrooms
Okay, very
and
good.
continue that process.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank
We
you.
just, fingers crossed it'll get it.
Sure, thanks.
Okay.
Just like totally out of curiosity, what is going to be done with all of the current furniture that is no longer going to be needed?
So, you know, Dr. Garwood had a superintendent's meeting a couple weeks ago and kind of mentioned it to us, or to, you know, other surrounding districts. We've already had one reach out, kind of wondering, hey, you know, let us know what you're getting rid of. We've reached out to other parochial schools in and around the area. You know, it's kind of funny because, you know, it's we want to reuse any good furniture that we currently have in the classrooms getting revamped this year. So I've, you know, let the principals know, like, hey, whatever you're going to get rid of, but I'm sure, you know, put it out to your other teachers. If your kindergarten teacher has a great reading table and your 5th grade teacher doesn't, they're going to want to take that for the next couple of years. So we're kind of gathering everything we want to get rid of. You know, this definitely isn't a, you know, we're going to bring in 6 new classrooms at the elementary. You know, we're going to get rid of 4. It's no, we're going to get rid of 6. So we're working on that essentially to make sure it goes to a good place. It's still used of what can still be used.
Is there a sense of what the expenditures are in maintenance and turnover in a given year? Does this lessen that over the next 20 years after we spend a lot of money in 3 years after that?
Absolutely. I mean, I think kind of having a standard now district-wide is really going to be helpful for the future. You know, each grade level has a standard size chair. You know, we're going to have a standard color district-wide for elementary chairs so that, you know, it's not the school. So if you have to move, if you know, you're down one classroom in one building and have to add somewhere else, you can just take it over there and it all matches. Kind of getting away from that, you know, yeah, I've been here for 20 years, I've gathered some of this and, you know, I'm gonna keep it. And also, you know, kind of when I first started here, if we added an extra classroom, we just added new desks. And sometimes, you know, they were out of stock or different, and you just added whatever you kind of had or whatever you could find. So not everything in every classroom matches right now. And I think, you know, the program is to have every student at every grade level in every school have the same type of learning environment. district-wide.
What do you need from us today? Is just this encouragement?
So coming back next month, since it's such a large purchase, the board will need to approve it. It is over the bid threshold, however, we are part of a couple different cooperatives and this pricing falls into one of those cooperatives. So all the furniture's already been out, or already has been bid out, and the companies have kind of, all matched the pricing, so we can kind of order it and fall under that automatic pricing. So
at the March board meeting, there'll be
an action item.
an action item to approve phase 1.
You don't want to just give us the credit card and have us go to IKEA as a group.
When you get more points that way?
Jim would have to build it all.
Be the next few months building Swedish.
Although that does bring up a point, is there if we're purchasing all this furniture with a hope that it's gonna last for 30 years, is there some sort of guarantee on the furniture if in the event that it breaks? Because it's children.
I mean, it is all, I don't know if industrial is the right word, but it is all commercial grade property. So commercial grade furniture that is meant for children to run on and jump on and
To be children.
yes.
So it's not a Walmart special and it's not like this, so we should be.
Not for that price.
All the soft seating's fire rated, like all those pieces are. Are they able to clean all that soft seating? How's that gonna happen? Like, what is that?
Cause it's like the shiny sort of exterior, vinylish sort of exterior.
Cool.
You can spray them, wipe them down, disinfect, release it.
And the individual unit prices, just shopping for dining room tables has set my heart aflutter recently, so these are ridiculous. So, yeah, individual prices.
Can you throw his dining table onto the?
We got two of them because the first one was defective. It was a really crowded dining room. Where?
Outdoor furniture.
All right. Next on our list, I believe, is our 24-25 staffing needs.
So we have a couple of staffing needs for next year. Later on this year, we may bring back some special ed positions once we're able to sort of assess where we are there. But if you'll recall, our MTSS teachers, we paid for them out of ESSER. They were initially meant to be a 3-year position with the idea that we'd evaluate them to make recommendations on keeping them. The purpose was originally to set up all the structures for us so that eventually maybe the positions wouldn't be needed. We definitely don't feel like we're ready to let those positions go yet at this time. As you saw from last month's presentation, there's an extraordinary amount of value on those positions, and it depends from our classroom teachers on having those positions either right now. We just don't feel like 3 years has been enough to say that the mission is completed there. So my recommendation is to push the decision off on those positions for another year. Let Dr. Grenz evaluate how those positions are playing out next year, and then make a recommendation for continuing the positions after next year. In addition to that, there's a possibility we might have to have a bilingual Arabic classroom at Devonshire. The ELL rules from the state are once you have 20 kids that speak one language who are EL kids in one school, you have to attempt to offer a bilingual classroom. It's not a self-contained classroom, it's sort of a resource classroom where kids can go and get native language support. We're right about at that threshold with Arabic speakers at Devonshire. There's some challenges there. It's hard to find a certified Arabic teacher. It's not a real high incidence language amongst licensed teachers in Illinois. So we're beginning to sort of look around there in the event that it is a need that we have to hire for, as well as Karina's also looking at trying to build some curriculum, resources and materials. We're not at the point where we are certain that we're going to need to have this position for next year, but it's just sort of a heads up that it could be a reality depending on where student enrollment goes. ISB will be flexible with some of these hard to fill bilingual positions. If we're unable to find a certified bilingual teacher, if that's what we end up having to do, they will allow for tutors, native language tutors, to kind of be able to bridge the gaps while you're still trying to build a program over time. So we're going to be monitoring the numbers throughout the rest of the spring and get a better handle on whether we need to add that teacher or not. It's not really so much a classroom as it is a teacher. And then through the influx of newcomers, we need to add another EL resource specialist. We currently have one in the district right now. She's become spread a little bit thin because our newcomers have continued to arrive. So for next year, we really do need to add one more EL resource specialist. So for right now, recommending keeping those 5 MTSS teachers for next year, pending program evaluation, and the EL resource teacher for next year, and then the other, the Arabic teacher is a possible.
So Jim, is the decision now, or is this is more informational that this is what we can expect to see later in the year, or we're not really voting? Are we voting on it?
It's not really, yeah, this
Okay.
isn't an action item for
Okay.
today. It would come up when, like for the EL resource teachers, in March, that would be there. I guess my question is sort of a straw poll here. I mean, are there strong feelings one way or the other? I have some, but what are yours?
I agree. You seem reasonable. I mean, it's hard to argue with, in particular, being prepared to make sure that we're equipped with the bilingual Arabic teacher if need be. So I definitely appreciate you thinking and looking ahead in case we actually need that, because these aren't things that positions you're gonna fill at the last minute, so. Yeah.
That one I'm concerned about, just because of the need to develop curriculum and the uncertainty. How much time would be needed to develop curriculum and to recruit for and try to fill a position that we don't know we need? And I know that's a tricky question.
It's a tricky question. I'm gonna look at Ms. Luciano back here to answer the curriculum question.
Yeah, so it would take some time, but I do have a plan in place. And so there are some districts that currently have Arabic programs. So I plan to visit some of those school districts and see how they're running their program, what curriculum they currently have. And so I'm exploring resources as well. We can turn it over pretty quickly. Of course, curriculum will need to continue to be developed, but we would have a starting point.
We were in a similar position a couple of years ago when we had to have Urdu classrooms as well, because again, it's not a curriculum that's readily, available, and we had to pull resources together sort of and build the program as we went. So it's not a classroom where kids will be in all day long. They'd be in a regular classroom, but they would be pulled out for a certain, time period to be able to get that native language support.
Do you have any sense of whether other districts nearby are facing a similar threshold question and how competitive it will be to fill a hard to fill?
I don't know yet about what the neighboring districts, it wouldn't surprise me if District 69, for example, would hit some of the thresholds with some different languages. So, it's possible. I don't know what the competition is like for Arabic bilingual teachers. I haven't seen a whole lot of Arabic bilingual programs in the area. I know like Palos has several as well.
Yes, and at the most recent conference I attended, there was a larger number of resources and staff, even at the state board level, that are focused on Arabic
Yeah.
the Arabic language and bilingual Arabic, so.
And we were gonna tap into Sabiha Patel, the director of the ELL Parent Center. She was an Arabic high school teacher at the MCC before she joined us. We know she has a lot of connections to teachers who speak Urdu and Arabic and whatnot. So we're hoping she's gonna be able to help provide us with some good leads.
Thank you. Thank you.
And then how many of these are numbers, are these, obviously the one is numbers, are all of them numbers based, or is it, was there a fluctuation in enrollment to affect any of these things?
For the bilingual classroom?
Is that the only one that?
That's the only one that's really, specifically enrollment based, because it's a requirement that once you hit that 20 in one school that you attempt to offer them. And right now, we're like right around the number, and it can fluctuate from one day to the other. So we're going to be monitoring closely between now and midsummer, I would say, to be able to determine whether we need to do this. In the meantime, we'll be scouting, doing some early recruiting, and trying to flesh out curriculum. Because my sense is, if not this year, I'd say there's a pretty good chance, in the near future.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Let's move on to some policy reading.
Okay. All right, I'm just gonna go the short route and just read the policies out. If you have questions, stop me and I will attempt to answer the questions. If you have no questions, we'll move quickly. Okay. Board policy 5250, leaves of absence. Hearing no questions, we'll go to 5330, sick days, vacation, holidays, and leaves. 650, school wellness. 660, curriculum content. Some more unfunded mandates about curriculum content there. 6230, library media program, and 760, residents. Thank you very much. We will see these 6 policies back as second readings in March.
Thank you very much. All right, and that moves us on to our communication and information section. Plant a tree, thank you. This, shall we read this? Or get that submitted for your?
Essentially, the energy company we use has a program where they would plant trees on our behalf, depending on how much money we expect with them. I thought it connected well to our sustainability efforts, so I thought I'll just include this one in the information because we're getting 16, 17
16 new trees.
And because of work we've done with them.
I got nervous when it was called One Tree Planted, and I was hoping the bar was a little higher. Double digits, right? That's one. In terms of freedom of information, there was one request and a response for information under the Freedom of Information Act during the period January 12th through February 8th, 2024. On January 8th, the district received a commercial request from
Sherry.
Data acquisition specialist requesting purchase order and vendor information. Response was sent February 5th. On January 17th, the district received a request from Nathan Malik from the Illinois Retired Teachers Association requesting the name and email address of any certified staff retiring this year. Response was sent on January 18th. The next item of business is entering a closed session of the board. May I have a motion?
I call for a motion to enter closed session to discuss the appointment, employment, compensation, discipline, performance, or dismissal of specific employees of the public body or legal counsel for the public body, including hearing a testimony on complaint lodged against an employee of the public body or against legal counsel for the public body to determine its validity.
Second.
Buckner?
Yes.
Sturbins?
Yes.
Sullivan?
Yes.
Warshaw?
Yes.
Jordan?
Yes.
Joseph?
Yes.
Lionel?
Yes.
Thank you.
We will be turning the cameras off.